I have arrived at a game that feels strangely familiar, yet it began long before modern football. The first thing I notice is the space. This court is wide, clear, and built for movement. Before anyone kicks the ball, they call this a kickball contest, and every eye here follows one small leather sphere. The ball is small, solid, and clearly visible, moving only between the player's feet. The game feels ancient. Watching this, I understand why people compare it to the roots of football. No hands are used, and the ball stays in front of the player with clear daylight around it. The connection is simple. This field is not random. Every boundary shapes how the game can breathe. Players are separated from walls, spectators, and architecture by a broad, open buffer of clear ground. The entire crowd is waiting for a ball no larger than a melon to change the mood. The ball remains the only moving object when a player steps into frame and taps it gently. A small object. The players move like dancers before they move like competitors. Their clothing is loose enough for motion but simple enough not to tangle with the ball. Preparation makes the game believable because around the court, the crowd gathers in layers, but the field stays open and protected. No spectator stands inside the playing lane, and the game space remains clean and empty. The crowd gives the scene scale without invading the action. I am walking the edge of the court, close enough to feel the energy but far from the play. Players remain distant in the background, and the ball never approaches the presenter. The host becomes our guide without becoming an obstacle inside the game. A drumbeat signals the beginning, and the players stop moving all at once. The ball sits clearly at center with empty space around it and players waiting several steps away. The pause makes the first kick feel important. The first kick is gentle, controlled, and perfectly visible across the open court. The camera stays side-on so the ball, foot, and ground never overlap confusingly. The game begins not with chaos but with control. A second player receives the ball with a measured step and returns it cleanly. Both players remain full body visible with clear space between them and the ball. The viewer can understand the entire play in one glance. The rhythm of the game lives in the feet, not in brute force. The ball stays separate from the body and never disappears behind loose clothing. Skill becomes cinematic when the movement is simple and clean. The crowd reacts because every touch must be earned without using the hands. The ball remains in front of the body, never hidden, never duplicated, never clipping through cloth. The limitation makes the game harder and more beautiful. At the far end, I see the target that turns play into purpose. No ball passes through the frame yet. The scene only establishes distance, target, and space. The goal gives the crowd something to anticipate. A player lines up the ball, and suddenly the whole court leans toward the target. The player takes a slow approach while the ball remains still and clearly visible. The setup is as important as the kick. The ball rises from the player's foot in a clean arc toward open space. The ball does not touch any body, wall, or wood. It travels through clear air. The crowd's reaction tells us the attempt was close enough to matter. The ball drops wide, and the crowd releases a sound that is half laughter and half pain. Dust rises lightly as the ball bounces once and rolls safely away from the frame. Even a miss can make the whole court feel alive. The suspense here is simple. One ball, one target, and thousands of people holding their breath. The field is wide and open, reflecting the ancient traditions. We see the players far in the distance preparing for. This game feels playful, but its discipline also looks like training for balance and control. The ball moves slowly from one foot to another, never crossing through legs or robes. The same
Movement can be entertainment.
The officials do not need to shout. Their stillness makes the rules feel older than the court. No readable symbols appear on clothing or banners, only color and shape. Order gives the game weight. The drums are not background noise. They shape the heartbeat of the match. The instruments and crowd are shown separately from the ball action. The sound makes the contest feel ceremonial without becoming dangerous. The second round starts faster because now the crowd knows what to watch for. The lane is empty, wide, and clear, with no wall near the player or ball. Momentum builds safely when the space is simple. A teammate shifts sideways, and the ball moves with him, like a thought becoming visible. The camera stays high enough to show spacing between players, ball, and boundary markers. The action reads like a primitive version of team play. I can see people learning the game with their eyes, predicting the next touch before it happens. No foreground player blocks the court. The crowd's emotion is the main action. A good sport teaches the audience how to watch it. For a moment, the ball's shadow races across the dust faster than the players. No bodies or walls intersect the ball's path. The smallest visual detail can make the motion feel real. A player cushions the ball with his thigh, and the crowd answers with a sharp gasp. That was a moment of true skill. The ball remains visible outside the clothing and drops safely to the ground afterward. The beauty of the game is control under pressure. The ball rolls fast, but one foot stops it with quiet precision. The ball remains in front of the foot with clear contact and no clipping. Stillness after movement makes the skill obvious. I keep walking because the game itself refuses to stay still. The ball stays far behind her, never crossing her body or foreground space. Movement in the host and movement in the game stay clearly separated. The players spread across the court, and suddenly, the game has shape instead of noise. The ball is stationary at center for clarity while players shift positions around it. Formation turns simple kicking into strategy. Now the rally begins, but every touch remains clean enough to follow. The camera stays wide, making all bodies, ball, and spaces readable. The scene feels complex without becoming visually chaotic. The second attempt rises higher, and the crowd lifts with it. The ball travels through open air, no bodies underneath, no wall contact, no duplicate ball. Height adds drama while the image stays safe. The ball passes near the target opening, and the crowd explodes even before it lands. The ball stays clearly in front of the open space, not inside wood or stone. A near success can feel as exciting as a score. Dust begins to rise from the player's feet, painting the game in gold. The festival continues. The player aims for the ancient wooden goal. They pass the ball. Now, the player controls it. The sun is high now, and every player looks like they are racing the heat as much as the opponent. The ball rests in open space while players reset their positions. The environment becomes part of the contest. Even ancient athletes need a pause, and this pause shows the human side of the game. No active play occurs, and the court geometry remains visible. A break makes the next burst of action feel earned. This is not just a sport. It is a public ritual built from rhythm, space, and skill. The field remains visible in the background, with no close ball movement. The host gives meaning while the visuals breathe. Near the edge, children copy the player's footwork with tiny, imaginary kicks. No ball is near the children. The main ball remains on the official court in the distance. Someone had to make this ball before anyone could make history with it. The ball is stationary, solid, and clearly the only ball in frame. The object becomes a character of its own. A player stares at the ball like the entire world has narrowed to one point. The sun, the earth, the roar of the crowd, every moment hangs in the balance, a breath held before the strike. The next round begins with a clean, rolling pass down the center lane. The ball moves along an unobstructed path with players on either side, not in front of it. The center lane is kept visually empty so the motion reads clearly. Another player steps into position, trying to predict the pass before it arrives. The camera remains high and wide so there is no body-ball overlap confusion. Strategy appears as movement before contact. The player stops the pass with one foot and turns the play in a new direction. Only one active player and one ball dominate the frame. A simple touch can change the story. The crowd surges in sound, but their bodies stay safely beyond the field. The playing lane remains distant and empty in the foreground. Crowd energy builds the stakes without crowding the game. I am near the target now, and every kick feels louder from this end of the court. Players train here, but the court is expansive and offers ample space. The host changes location to keep the episode visually alive. The target is simple, but simplicity makes it terrifying under pressure. The frame stands alone on the open field with clear ground around it. Establishing the object prevents confusion when the attempt comes later. The next player takes 3 careful steps, and the court becomes quiet again. The path is open, the ball is centered, and no other players enter the lane. A calm setup makes the action stronger. The kick is quick, clean, and lifted just above the dust. The ball separates from the foot immediately and travels through empty air. The moment is readable because only one contact happens. The crowd sound tells us the attempt found its mark before we see the aftermath. The anticipation erupts into sheer joy. The home team scores. After the cheer, the players reset with calm discipline instead of chaos. The ball is held clearly and never duplicated while play is paused. Order after excitement keeps the scene stable. There is no scoreboard here, only memory, officials, and a crowd that knows what just happened. No readable marks or numbers appear anywhere. The game depends on shared attention. The final part of the match feels faster, but the court remains open and clear. They never collide, and the ball stays centered in the open lane. Energy rises without visual clutter. One player controls the ball with short touches, each one small enough to see. No other players, walls, or objects cross the ball's path. Controlled speed looks better than chaotic speed. A defender mirrors the movement, close enough to pressure, but far enough to keep the image clean. The camera is wide and stable, showing both full bodies and open ground. Tension can exist without contact. The attacker turns away from pressure with a clean pivot and one touch. The ball never hides behind the legs, and the defender remains clearly separated. A clean turn is more cinematic than a collision. The crowd can feel the last attempt coming, and so can I. Distant players prepare in the background, with the ball stationary and visible. The final act begins through her movement and anticipation. The final attempt starts with stillness, and stillness makes the entire court lean forward. The field is open from foreground to target, with no bodies blocking the path. The image clearly shows what is about to happen. The foot strikes the ball, and the whole ancient court seems to rise with it. The ball remains the only flying object and never intersects with any body or architecture. The kick feels iconic because the path is simple. This ancient game feels like a bridge from their world to ours. The field stands empty now, the echoes of the game fading into the warm light. We connect this ancient moment to the present. I came looking for an ancient contest, and I found the oldest feeling in sport: everyone watching one ball. The empty field and goal frame sit behind her, stable and clear. The final line gives the episode its emotional hook. The machine is calling me back, but the sound of that ball is still echoing across the court. No ball action, no crowd chaos, only scale, light, and memory. The episode ends with wonder instead of noise.